of this iconic company. Right now, it's in the top 10 of the Fortune 500 list. It sits at number 7 as of 2014. We are going to look at how General Motors came to life. In 1908, in the small town of Flint, Michigan, William C. Durant founded this company. Durant was a carriage salesman, a very good salesman at that, and he was encouraged by some colleagues to start an automobile industry as automobiles were becoming very popular during this time. When this company started, there were less than 8,000 motorized vehicles in the United States, but there was obviously a consumer interest in the automobile. The Foundation for Economic Education stated, in 1908, Durant founded GM, a consolidation of 13 car companies and 10 parts and accessories manufacturers with a capitalization of $60 million. This company did have a rocky start. In the beginning, not all 13 of its brands were selling very well. Buicks and Cadillacs definitely outsold most of the other brands. However, despite that, GM was able to become the top competitor in the market starting in the 1920s. In the 1920s, the auto market surged, motorized vehicles became very popular, and GM grew significantly. It opened 12 manufacturing plants overseas. As you can, this here is the 1924 Buick. It was one of the first Buick models. As you can see, we've come a long way. Alfred Sloan, the CEO for General Motors in the 1920s, once said, "GM has a car for every purse and purpose." This kind of became the motto of GM, so to speak. They've been committed to providing cars with unbeatable quality and the latest innovations. In the 1930s, GM was recognized as the largest automaker in the United States, selling over 350,000 cars in the US and Canada alone. That is a long way from their beginning when there was barely 8,000 in the US. In the 1940s, World War II hit and GM halted its civilian car production. GM supplied over $12 billion worth of tanks, trucks, airplanes, and other war supplies to the Allies during World War II, which showed its commitment to its country. After the war, the interest in car culture really picked back up, and General Motors during the 50s and 60s created some of the most iconic cars in America. These cars include the Chevy Corvette, the Pontiac GTO, and the Pontiac Firebird, cars that we consider today as definitely classics. Although GM was enormously successful during this time, a rocky road was just around the corner. In the 1980s, GM hit its first loss in 60 years. It had been profiting for 60 years. In the 1980s, it lost money for the first time. This was due to a spike in fuel prices, as well as consumers wanting smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. GM was not able to supply these efficiently, and foreign markets, such as the Japanese and the Germans, really took over the market in the United States, hurting GM's success. GM attempted to drastically recreate their manufacturing plants in order to provide the U.S. with these smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, but it failed to do so. In the early 2000s, GM stuck with its motto of having the most innovative and efficient cars and came up with new designs such as electric cars, flex fuels, and hybrid trucks and SUVs. It also expanded globally. This is the first Saturn created in 1990. GM partnered with Toyota to create better cars, smaller cars that were more fuel efficient during this time. This is an example of a concept car that was more fuel efficient. It ran on hydrogen fuel. It never actually was produced, but this is the type of thing that GM was looking at for the future of cars in America. GM continued to have great success. However, they started experiencing losses in the early 2000s, which would eventually lead to the controversial bailout of 2008, something that most of us can remember. Due to a major recession and global credit crises, as well as a fuel price increase, there was no private capital to be invested in the car market. GM experienced this and their sales declined rapidly. They were losing billions of dollars and they had to rely on the US Treasury to bail them out. The Treasury gave GM about $49.5 billion to bail them out of their crisis. $6.7 billion of that was a direct loan. The rest were consumption of GM's market shares. In 2009, GM split into two companies. There was the old GM and the new GM. The old GM filed bankruptcy in 2009, while the new GM began in 2009. It was a smaller, more versatile company that was able to kickstart production and become very successful. This leads us to GM's overwhelming success today and their promise to satisfy all customers seeking high quality, innovative cars. Today, GM, according to Forbes, has repaid their $6.7 billion loan in full with interest, as well as recovered most of their market shares from the US Treasury. GM now controls 11 brands, 4 of which are in the United States, ones that we all know and love. Those are Chevy, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC. According to GM, they have not forgotten their mission statement from the past as far as providing cars for every person. According to GM, the new GM is the competitive spirit that for decades drove GM to leadership in styling, technology, engineering, marketing, and other key areas of the auto business. This spirit guides the new GM as it works to design, build, and sell the world's best vehicles.